All right, everyone. We're going to get started here today. Thanks so much for joining the Starter Admin training. We're going to cover just the general layout and interface in Jazz, go over the launch page, as well as walk you through workflows and some best practices and overall how to use them. We're also going to cover how to create a job, some of the job syndication rules and regulations, as well as just some best practices for creating jobs and getting your jobs as much visibility as possible. We're also going to go over the candidate profile and how to screen a candidate and some of the workflow helpers, what they look like in action once we get that going in the workflow. So you should definitely come away knowing how to create a job, how to set up your workflows, how to screen candidates, and overall feel comfortable doing the basic screening and job creation functions in the system. As I recommend throughout this webinar, definitely follow up and create some test candidates, test jobs to get a good feel for the system. You should expect about 45 minutes to an hour. You do have the opportunity to ask questions and get answers. Feel free to submit your questions at any time. I will answer them whenever I have a pause or at the end of the webinar. You will receive a follow-up email with a recording of the webinar. So if you do need to refer to it or rewatch it or anything, you will receive a follow-up email with a recording. I also like to point out our support resources. You will have the FAQ on the launch page. You also have this need help guide that will follow you through the app that you can click on at any time, and I will highlight that. You can also visit support.jazz.co at any time, and I will show that as well. Or you can always email support@jazz.co. And I recommend adding support@jazz.co as a contact in your email. This way you can always reach out to us at any time. You can just send out the email. It'll be there for your easy reference, and you don't have to necessarily remember how to get our support line. So support@jazz.co will be your main answer. And then if you need to go to success.jazz.co, I'll also give you the link for that. And you can find instant answers on our knowledge base. You've got a lot of help at your fingertips if you need it. But hopefully we'll get you off and running today with the basics in the system. So let's get started. If you've never logged into Jazz before, you'll just want to go to jazz.co, and this is where you can log into the app. Your login will be your work email, whatever email you use to sign up with, and your password would be provided to you in the initial email you got set up with, or you may have reset it. You can also click forget password whenever you log in order to access information. So whenever you log in, you'll be brought to the launch page. This is where you're going to get started in the system. You can see a company snapshot here at the top, as well as a list of the open jobs that you're on the hiring team for. You can also see your inbox, so any emails or app mentions that have been sent to you will pop up right in your inbox. Any upcoming interviews, any incomplete tasks, and you can filter these for all tasks, so account-wide or just for yourself for each of these options, as well as the latest activity and your watch list in the account. So your watch list is just going to be a quick list of candidates that are kind of top of mind, or you need to move through the system pretty fast and keep on your radar. Again, a lot of these are filterable if you need to kind of change the way they look and see the important information for you. On the right-hand side, we have the training schedule. So if you do need to sign up for an additional webinar or anything, or you want your hiring managers to come in and register for our new user webinar, you can come in and they'll bring you right to our link here, where you can get everybody signed up for training. You also have your frequently asked questions here and this need help guide that is kind of popped out on the right. You can type in any questions, or you can just type in some general phrases that you're looking for information on a specific topic. So if you're looking for information on using email scheduling, it'll bring us to this nice article that gives a lot of information on that. So I definitely recommend using that as much as possible as well. It's a good help. Additionally, you can submit a support ticket through here. So if you are having any issues, this will bring you right to our support page where you can also access our live chat. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of these resources while you're getting set up in the system if you do have any questions. Okay, the first thing that we're going to cover today is workflows. And to find workflows, you'll want to go into admin, and then you'll be brought to our workflows page. So workflows is pretty important because it is kind of the backbone of Jazz. This is how you translate your recruiting process into the ATS. So if you think about your process right now, basically from when a candidate applies to when they are hired, the different steps that they may go through. So maybe your candidate goes through an initial resume screen by yourself, and then the hiring managers also screen the resume. Then there's a phone screen, an interview, maybe just one interview. Then there's a bit of a consideration stage where maybe you have a meeting or they go through some reference checks, and then there's an offer made, and then they're hired. So that could be an example. Everybody's process is different. But luckily in Jazz, you have the ability to create as many custom workflows as you need in order to reflect your process. So we have some examples here of overall company workflow, a workflow for a particular job, this Randy's personal assistant job here, or just a standard workflow, or we have it broken out as an example, our success department. So if you want to break it out by department. It all depends on how you hire and how your processes differentiate from one another based on a job. I would say that most people have a couple different workflows since processes can change a lot in a different job from one job to another. So I would recommend kind of taking a good look at how you actually hire in your different jobs and seeing whether or not you should have multiple workflows or just one company workflow for everything. So I'm going to make an example workflow for a software engineer. So maybe in my company, a software engineer, we hire very differently for them just because of the nature of the take-home test or some of the other evaluations that we need to have. So we can add our software engineer here, click create. And here we have our hiring stages. So we have our basic hiring stages, our hired and not hired dispositions. So in our hiring stages, we have this kind of concept of a new stage. So you can edit this to have a different email for each job. So if you want to have a different email based on the type of position it is, if it's a high volume position and the automatic email that each candidate receives is a little bit different, you want to let them know, hey, I might not get to you, but you'll receive an email if you weren't selected for the position, or if it's a kind of more difficult role to fill and you want to give some more information about your company and get them excited about the position and your company, you can edit that particular email for that job. So you can kind of edit this auto reply for each workflow that you might use on a job. So you can also automate some of the information that might be coming through as soon as a candidate applies. So if you want to get a task or you want to get an email notification, you can set that up on a workflow basis. So just something to keep in mind as you're setting up your stages and thinking about what you want to happen, as soon as a candidate applies into the system. Below that, we have our active stages. So when a candidate is actually moved into the next step in the process, we have these kind of 4 basic steps here. Whenever you create a workflow, you'll be provided with this kind of template of 4 basic steps. These are the overarching, really simple steps that a candidate goes through when they're going through the recruiting process. So most of you probably have something similar to these steps in your process. If we want to, we can add some additional stages. So like I said, maybe, my software engineering process is a little bit more advanced. I have them do a take-home test, and we also have a second interview, with the team to make sure they're a good culture fit. So I can add a new stage. Culture fit lunch is going to be one of my stages. And we're also going to have the hacker rank evaluation. So I can add those 2 stages in. And then I can click reorder up here, and drag and drop these stages wherever it makes sense. So I'm going to have my culture fit lunch, and then after that we'll have the hacker rank evaluation, and I can see that this looks good, so I can click I'm done, and we're all set. So I have the additional stages that I need to reflect my process a little bit better, and I have reordered them properly. I also have the ability to delete, rename, or add hired or not hired dispositions. So for example, I know I'm not going to be hiring any part-time software engineers. Anyone who works in this position is going to be working full-time. So I can just delete this guy right out of here. And then I might also want to rename and add a couple not hired dispositions. Not hired statuses and dispositions are really good ways to build out your candidate pipeline and kind of categorize candidates at a glance. So you can say, maybe they weren't hired, but they're a good future consideration candidate. Maybe they failed the take-home test. You want to notate that really quickly. So these are some good ways to, look at a glance, run some searches, run some reports, and see, why candidates aren't being hired. Just a really overarching quick glance. You can always put more information in the notes or read the emails or get some more information by looking in depth into the candidate profile. But adding these little extra categories for your dispositions will help you out a lot. So I can rename this not hired status. Maybe I want to just make it something a little bit like not a fit, so that I know overall they weren't a good fit. I'm probably not interested in hiring them again or looking at their resume again. They didn't have the qualifications that would really meet any roles in my company. I can add in a new disposition. Maybe I want to add this future consideration, so that I can put any people that I didn't have a chance to hire yet into this status so that I can look at them later. And I can add a failed hacker rank. If I want to get a pulse on how many people are actually failing that hacker rank evaluation, maybe I go and run a report at the end of the year and I find out that 75% of the candidates that applied for this position failed this evaluation. Maybe I need to start finding ways to get some better candidates or kind of pre-screening them up front so that we're not spending a lot of time interviewing and things like that before we get to this stage. So all of this can help inform your data and give you some more good information on reporting. So whatever you put into the system, you can get more and more information out of it. So I definitely recommend setting these up as clearly as possible. So once you add in your extra steps, you can go in and add in some helpers to help you move candidates through the process and sort of organize your process, send you some reminders, easily communicate with candidates, and we call these workflow helpers. So at each stage, you can click add to add in these different helpers. So you have the ability to add in a task, an email, an interview, or a questionnaire. So a task would be something internally used within Jazz. It'll send you an email notification whenever you've been assigned a task or anyone else on your team is assigned a task. And you can manage them easily up here in this little checkbox at the top of your screen. You can see all the tasks assigned to you, the candidates that they're associated with, and you can manage the whole kit and caboodle under My Tasks. You can see which ones were delegated and completed. So it allows you to kind of keep a nice running tally of what needs to be done and who needs to do it, who you've assigned things to. So I definitely recommend using tasks if you're trying to stay very organized within the system and you have a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different people who are responsible for different items in the system. So that's a good use case for tasks. You can just add a task by clicking add task here. And, like I said, maybe in my scenario, a candidate comes in, I evaluate them, and if I like them, I move them into a screen stage, which sends a task out to the hiring manager saying, hey, please review this resume. So if I create my task and I say review resume and not mention HR with notes, oops. And then I can put in any additional instructions to the person who's going to be assigned this task in the notes section. So if I want to say, review the resume, click here, send me an at mention, blah, 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 something that might be guiding them a little bit more or specific information that you might be looking for that would be helpful for you. And then you can pick who it would be assigned to. So in my case, I want to assign it to the hiring manager, but you can also assign it to the person that's moving them through the stage. So it would basically be yourself, the entire hiring team, or you can select when triggered, which is basically you can select individual users whenever you trigger this task. So whenever you move someone into this stage, you can select individual people from a list. So if your roles are varied and it's kind of hard to pick, a static person that should receive this task every time, you may want to just pick a couple people off a list depending on their role. Okay, so I'm gonna click here and I'm going to assign it to the hiring manager. Click Add Task, and now I can see in my screen stage I have assigned task here and the content of the task. Next, I can add any other of our workflow helpers here. So we have the opportunity to add in an email, interview, or questionnaire. We're going to cover interviews as a whole in the advanced admin webinar, so I won't go over them in too much detail right now. But we will cover questionnaires here a little bit. So questionnaires are a custom set of questions that you can create and add to the job application up front when a candidate applies, or you can send it to them after they apply and you have them in the system and you want to collect a little bit more information. So if you like to keep your candidate applications, right when they're applying for the job up front, short and sweet, but then you want to collect a little bit more information after they apply, you can use a questionnaire to collect that information, and you can use it as a workflow helper to make it happen automatically. So you can click Add Questionnaire here. You can select your questionnaire from the list. So if I just have my general jazz.co questionnaire and I want to send it with a particular email, this will give you a preview of the email. You can add your questionnaire and it will show you that it's going to send at this stage. At any time, you can also edit and delete these workflow helpers. So if I need to edit and make any changes to this, swap out the questionnaire, whatever I need to do, I can do that. Or if I need to remove this, I can just delete that entirely and I'll take it off the list. And this will update your jobs as well. So the best feature on these workflow helpers, in my opinion, is the ability to automate a lot of these emails. So in my not hired dispositions, this is a good example of when to use a workflow helper email. So I can click Add Email at my not a fit stage. And I can select a rejection letter. So this ensures that each candidate that you move into this not hired status is going to receive a rejection letter. And I'll show you what that looks like, actually going through the process a little bit later when we get into the candidate profile. But you can assign the recipient as the candidate here. Click Add Email. And now each time you disposition a candidate into that not a fit status, every single one of those candidates is going to get that nice email. You have the opportunity to deselect that and delay it, and it'll warn you that that's going to send out. So it's not going to send out without your notification or without your consent, but you do have that easily set up so that you're not going through and leaving candidates hanging, submitting their resume into a black hole and they don't know what's going on. And it can prevent candidates following up multiple times and applying multiple times to the same position. So I definitely recommend setting up a lot of those workflow helpers, and you can use them, those automatic emails, for anything. I mean, this is just an example, the not hired status. You could use them for internal emails, notifications to the candidate when they've been selected for a phone screen, asking them to give some good times, things like that. So you can definitely get creative with it whenever you're kind of setting those up and thinking about the emails that you send on a regular basis. Okay, so once I have created my workflow and I like the way it looks, I can come over to my list of hiring workflows here. And I can see, if any of these workflows are being used by a particular job. So you can have individual workflows on a particular job, and I'll go into that when we have job creation. We go over job creation. But you can also just have workflows that are used by a bunch of different jobs across your account. So if you do have a particular job that has kind of a different workflow, it's a little bit different, you can definitely edit that job on a one-off basis. But any edits you make here will update on all of the jobs that they're being used by. So you can kind of make sure that you have the right workflows on the right jobs here. just hover over that and you'll be able to see which jobs are using this particular workflow. If you ever need to edit workflows or clone them or delete them or archive them, you can just click this drop down to make any changes. So if you like to clone them just to edit a little bit, you can absolutely do that, and then delete if you need to remove any ones that aren't being used. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask away about workflows. I'm going to go over job creation next. I did get a question here. If I've already assigned a workflow to a position that has been posted and has applicants, and then I make changes to the workflow, are those changes automatically updated within those existing job postings? Yeah, so if you unlock, we'll go over that a little bit in the job creation section, but if you're going to edit the workflow and you want it to reflect on your current jobs, you'll want to edit in the admin section. If you want to edit it on an individual job basis, you'll have to unlock it, and then you can make changes to that individual job. But all the changes are automatically updated if you edit it in the admin section. Okay. So next we're going to dive into job creation. Job creation is pretty easy in Jazz, and I think you'll find it to be pretty straightforward. But there are some kind of tips and tricks and rules and regulations that will help you get the most candidates possible and make it easy to open new jobs and have consistency across your jobs. So when I click create job here, I see this kind of 4-step process here on my screen, and starting with the job posting. The job posting is a lot, it's going to be the advertisement that your candidates are going to see. So this is going to be what attracts your candidates to your job. So when we have here a job title, we want to think of something that is consistent, not super industry specific or your company specific, something that candidates would be searching for across all different industries, and something they would recognize when they saw it. So if you have something that's a really internal title, you might want to think of something or Google some alternatives that can help you craft something that's a little bit more broad so that candidates know what they're looking for. You definitely want to hit those keyword searches. So if I start typing in Jazz 2, you'll be able to get some suggestions in here as well. So we have a bunch of different options, like if I type in sales or manager, you can see all of our options here too. So if you are having trouble coming up with a particular title, there are some suggestions here for you. And then we can choose our template, and we have the ability to preview that template as well. So if I wanted to grab the software engineer template I just created, I can see the workflow that I just made and all of the helpers associated with it. So that works for me, and I can click select, and I can come down to my job description. The job description is basically the job posting, the job advertisement. This is going to give the candidates some details about what the actual job entails. The internal job code is the only thing on this particular screen that is specific to internal uses. So candidates don't see this. This is only going to be seen by you, by your team, and can be used for reporting, for categorizing, and for any sort of internal reports that you might run for accounting purposes, things like that. I like to use the example of the location with how many people you can hire for that particular role. So for example, if I'm hiring someone in our Waltham office and I can hire 5 people, I can enter that code in there. So, whatever works for you, if you guys do have those kind of tracking codes, this will really help. Next is the department. This is visible by candidates. Everything else here is visible to candidates. If I want to put in something like sales or software engineering, again, we're going to have these nice kind of suggestions here that will help you fill out that information. Next would be the employment type. This is required. You can see anything with the red asterisk would be required. and the job description. So the job description you can copy and paste, from everywhere you want. It will strip the formatting here, so you'll want to come in and reformat that. This is just because there are different kind of ways that things are formatted across the internet. In order to keep it consistent and look great across all of our job boards, we just strip that out to make sure that everything looks the same, so that it is easily edited and maintained right within Jazz. And you can actually clone jobs within Jazz once you create them, so that you don't have to go through and make these changes each time. You can basically just kind of copy and paste out the specific details about the position, but leave this nice bone structure here in the actual job description, so that you're not wasting time reformatting each time. But as you can see, it didn't take me very long. I recommend cloning jobs in general, just because it can create consistency across all your positions, and it's a lot easier than going through and creating a job each time. You'll save a lot of time. You can do something like create a job and call it job template or software engineer template or something like that, and then you'll know which one to clone and swap out some of the information. So I would definitely do that and try that as you're getting the system set up, and try cloning and seeing how it all works together. The next step here is the location. So location is really important in job posting for the job boards, for the free job boards. So free job boards do not accept a job without a specific location, aka a postal code, and it has to be a location that you actually have an office in. So I know a lot of you are hiring for nationwide positions, or you're hiring for telecommute positions where they can work anywhere. You're going to get, believe it or not, more candidates if you pick a specific postal code and indicate, in the job description or in the title that it's a telecommute position. So if I want to say like telecommute okay or something like that, you can absolutely do that. This will kind of ensure that you actually get on the job boards and ensure that your job isn't rejected by the quality team. And it also comes up in candidates' searches if they're searching for remote positions, they're searching for telecommute. Your job will still definitely come up there, even if they choose a location or if they leave the location blank. So I definitely recommend actually adding in a postal code, even if you're hiring for a nationwide or a telecommute position. So I'm going to select my state. I have no idea what the postal code is in Waltham. It's embarrassing, I know. And then in the job exposure section, this is where we can determine whether or not the job will actually go out on those free job boards. So by default, your job is going to go out to the free job boards. It's going to post specifically to them. You don't have to touch anything. And by default, it's also going to show up on your careers page. But you can toggle these off if you want to. If you're hiring for a sensitive position, you don't want your company to, have it blasted out there, someone's leaving. You can absolutely turn those off if you need to. And you can hide your company name as well, but this will remove it from the free job boards too. So definitely make sure that that's something you're okay with. You're okay with doing a little bit more of the grassroots recruiting in order to find candidates if you do not have that confidential search turned on. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more information on these rules and regulations, on the free job boards that we post to, we do have a link right here within the job creation section that'll bring you to our free job board lists, our regulations, as well as our up-to-date list on the boards we actually post to. So a lot of these boards have restrictions, a lot of them don't. This kind of gives some details on that and some information on why your job might not be out there. If you do have a job that doesn't meet our quality standards for whatever reason, we will notify you, and you'll learn the reason why, and we'll help walk you through how to fix it. So don't be overwhelmed if you're never posted the free job boards before, or some of these Indeed regulations are new to you. Definitely help you throughout the way in figuring out how to get the best job descriptions out there. So the next portion is sensitive data. This by default is not visible to users. So only admins and hiring managers can see this information, the person marked as the hiring manager in the app, and we'll go over that too. But you can put the salary range in here and just make sure it's only numbers. This field only accepts numbers, no commas or dollar signs or smiley faces or anything like that. And this is also where you can add in the job category for your EEO questions. So this is where your EEO questions will automatically populate. So if you're required to collect information for EEO or OFCCP compliance, this is how you can add those questions to the application in order to easily report on those. If you're unsure whether or not you need to collect it, definitely do some research and figure that out. But I would default to maybe collecting it if you're really unsure. You can always turn it off later, but it's nicer to have that information on hand if you did end up needing it. So in my EEO category, I will just select one of these options here, and then I can choose the rule that applies to me. You can also put some internal notes here as well. These will, again, not be visible to users. So if you want to put, how much you were budgeted for on salary, if so-and-so is leaving and you're opening this position to replace this person, any notes that might be relevant, just to you as an HR person about this particular job. And then from here, we can just create and publish the job, or we can save as a draft and continue. And I'm going to save as a draft and continue so that we can go through the next 3 steps in the process. So here's the job application. These are actually going to be the questions that you're going to ask candidates whenever they apply. You can see a preview on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, we can actually select just from a bank of common questions that you would want to ask candidates when they apply, and we can create that custom questionnaire as well. So for the common questions here, we can just check off anything in the left-hand column to add it to the application and check off the right-hand column to make it required. So if I want to know when they can start, their ability to work weekends and work evenings, have them type in what languages they may speak, and if they could provide their references and their employment status. So I can see all this information, and I can see the verbiage and what the questions look like on the left-hand side here, and I can select the drop-downs and just kind of get a good idea of what everything looks like. You can also preview your EEO questions here as well. So the verbiage and everything and what your EEO questions are going to look like will show up on your application as well. This is where you can also attach a custom questionnaire. So if you have a question that's specific to your company, specific to your job, something that is only relevant to this job, or something that just isn't covered by these common questions, if you have to word something in a specific way based on your state, you can absolutely create your own custom questionnaire. So if I wanted to create a questionnaire here for my software engineers, now, I wouldn't recommend making these too long. Candidates don't want to spend forever filling out an application. So especially, candidates that are more passive and not necessarily looking for a position, which a lot of time are pretty good candidates. So you might want to just keep it to about 5 questions or less, especially, less if they're going to be something that they have to write out like a paragraph text. And then click Add Question. Whoops. So I like drop downs because they're easy to report on, they're easy for you to search the answers on, they're easy for candidates to fill out, and it can give you a lot of good information right up front. But you can see that there's a ton of different answer types here, as well as a file upload. So if they need to upload a copy of their ID or something like that, they can absolutely do that as well. I'm going to choose the drop down and put in my answer choices. So if I have yes or no, and then I can also require an answer to this question. I can click Add Question, save and add to my job, and now I'll be able to see this question right on my application. You can also manage all of these questionnaires from admin and questionnaires. You can create, clone, delete, edit any of these from here. So this is just a good way to create one on the fly if you're looking to do that whenever you're creating your job. Okay, so now we've added all the questions to our application. Everything's looking good. We can click Save Job and we'll move on to the next step. This is our hiring workflow. So just a few notes here. This is going to be tied to the workflow that I created at the beginning of the webinar today, our software engineer workflow. We can see all my helpers, all the extra statuses and everything I have added in. And if I need to, I can unlock unlock from the template, and it will create a separate workflow that's just for this job. So any changes I make won't reflect in the template and won't reflect on any other jobs. I would recommend leaving all of your jobs locked to that particular template so that if you make any changes, they will reflect on all of your jobs and you won't have to edit this. I would only unlock it in the case of, this is a really specific job, it requires its own hiring process and you need to customize it. It just makes it easier for reporting. It makes it easier in maintaining your database and everything to have the same template across all of your jobs. So I definitely recommend leaving that if possible, but if you do need to make any changes to a specific job, just click unlock from template and it'll break that relationship. Okay, next is the hiring team. Now, the hiring team is going to be the group of users who are going to be participating in your hiring process. We can choose the hiring manager from the drop-down list. It's going to be a list of everyone who has access to your account. And then your team members can be selected off here in this box. And by default, your users are only going to be able to see the jobs that they have access to. So only the people who are selected off in this list will have access to this job. And adding people into the system is very easy. You'll just go to the people page. And here you can see a list of all of your users in the account. You can see what account type they are, their title, and you can click on their name to get any additional information. So what email address they have associated in their account, their password you can change, you can update their email signature. So anything you need to do in managing people who have access to your account, you can do from the people page. You can also add users in here. So if I want to select add person, and then I can choose my recruiting role. So your administrators are going to be the folks that need to have access to everything in the system. So your HR people, your kind of talent acquisition heads, things like that, people who need to be able to edit templates, create templates, run reports, add people into the system, those who are really running the Jazz account. Users are going to be your hiring managers, people who need to come in, leave notes, fill out interview guides, maybe create jobs, who you want to have a little bit more restricted access to the system. Recruiters are external recruiters. This role is meant for agencies. It's meant for people who you hire outside of your company to bring in candidates for you. And they have very limited access to the system. They can only see the candidates that they submit, and they can't create any jobs or anything like that. So if you are using outside agencies, you may want to add them in as a recruiter. So I'm gonna just select user here. If you type in their first name, last name, and email, they'll easily be added into the system. They'll receive a temporary password and a link that they can activate their Jazz account with. Then they'll be able to log in. And again, you can change anyone's password here as well from here. So if they're like, oh, I can't remember my password, they can change it themselves, or you can just click change here and they'll be able to get in. So it's pretty easy to set people up in the system. If somebody happens to leave your organization, you can just click this drop-down menu here and deactivate them, make sure they don't have access anymore. So I would definitely make that a part of your offboarding process as well. And once you've created all of your users and you've added them in and they all have access to Jazz, this is where you can start selecting them off this list. You'll also notice this groups functionality here. So groups allow you to manage who has access to a job basically from like the top down. So you can have your marketing, your engineering groups, and when I just click on the name, it'll easily add all of those people to that job right away. So you're not spending time checking off individual people. And then when you remove them from the group in the people section, they'll also be removed from the job. So if you do have, a lot of different types of people working on your jobs and they need to have specific access to specific jobs and you don't want to necessarily go in and manage it every single time someone leaves the company or someone moves across departments, you can just create groups to easily manage that. Okay, so now that I have my hiring team all set up, I can click Save Job, and I can put my job in an open status. So when you create your job, it's automatically just in that drafting status while you're going through and adding in all the steps. But when you put it in an open status, this is when it's going to be syndicated out to the job boards. It's going to be visible on your careers page. This is when you can start getting candidates actually flowing into the system. And when you create a job, you'll be brought to the Advertise tab. This allows you to purchase additional paid postings if you like. So we have a ton of different options here for paid postings if you're looking to reach specific markets like a diversity network or veterans network. If you're looking to reach healthcare professionals, if you have Career Builder or Monster inventory that you'd like to use on your Jazz account, you can follow the instructions on our knowledge base in order to get that set up. And you can directly connect to that inventory. It's very simple. And you can also create a custom job link. So if you're posting to a job board that's specific to your area, or Craigslist or AngelList, or things that we don't specifically integrate with, you can come to this option 2 here and start typing in your source. So if I were posting to the University of Pittsburgh's website, I can type in UPitt and it'll generate this link that will funnel candidates into the system once they apply. And it'll track their source as coming from University of Pittsburgh website. So this is a really good tool if you do post to a lot of different sites, outside of our just standard free job boards. You can find that in the drop-down list here too under Create Job Link. Okay, does anyone have any questions on job creation at all? Okay, we did get a question here. Can recruiters access the custom URLs as well? So recruiters actually get their own custom URL that's specific to them, and that is found on their profile page. Whenever you create them, you would just click on their name and you will see their individual link. So you can get your own kind of tracking link for your recruiters. So if I click on my recruiter here, I see this recruiter link. You can give this to your recruiters for them to submit candidates into the system. Okay, so we're going to go over the candidate profile and actually screening now. So in this kind of job dashboard, we can see what it looks like when there are actually candidates in your job. You can see the job information here and any candidates with offers and kind of get a little bit more information about this position. And if you want to look in an individual candidate profile, you can tab and sort by workflow statuses. So if I wanted to just see candidates in a new status, or I wanted to filter by a specific status that they're in under the active statuses, or see my not hired folks, you can filter all of that just by clicking on the tabs up here. Once I click in a candidate profile, I'll be able to see all of the information about them, their kind of demographic information up here, their source, maybe the recruiter that referred them, their resume here, as well as any answers to custom questionnaires. So we brought that up earlier about custom questions and how you can create those. Those answers are filtered in here. You can also send them out to the candidates after they apply just by clicking that plus sign here. You can grab your questionnaire, you can grab your email template and send to the candidate right from here. And again, it'll filter back into the system. Any documents that they've uploaded as a part of the application process, so if you do require a document as a part of that process, you'll see that here, as well as any categories. And categories are basically like tags. You can create them in the admin section or create them on the fly here, and then just add them to the candidate profile by selecting them and just clicking and saving it to their profile. These are good for like searching, reporting, kind of using your Jazz account as a good candidate pipeline or a candidate database to go back and search on good candidates that you might want to hire in the future. So I definitely recommend using that if you do a lot of pipelining or you like to go back and look at candidates that have applied for one of your previous positions. Below the resume, we've got the cover letter, the candidate information. So the candidate information section will house all of the answers to your common questions. So any answers that you've checked off on that job application page, any ones that were just selected by checking them off in that checkbox, those will show up here. So you get a lot of information here. You get a lot of information here, and you have everything that you need to kind of evaluate the candidate up front. In the resume area here, we also have the ability to email the resume as attachment, download it, pop it out, and print it. So if you're looking to export the resume, this would be the best place to do that. So once I review Will's profile, his questionnaire options, his cover letter, and his resume, I can decide whether or not I want to advance or reject him. So if I think he's a good candidate, I can click advance and move him into the next stage here. If you want to skip ahead a few stages, you absolutely can. You're not necessarily tied to moving them, sequentially through each stage. And I can also share some feedback along with this stage move. So if I want to use an @mention will send a notification to anyone that you've put an @ symbol in front of and put in their email address or their name, and they will get an email notification as well as a note in the discussion tab saying whatever you might want to say in your information. So if I wanted to say to Randy, or whatever the next steps might be in your screen stage, you can send that as a part of your stage move, and it will let the hiring manager, whoever you've @mentioned, let know that, hey, this is what needs to take place next. These are my notes, and they can take action based on that. And I did mention that tasks are something you can assign as a part of the workflow, and this is what that actually looks like. So you can see the task here I've created to review the resume and @mention HR with notes is being assigned to the hiring manager here. I can select the due date for this, so if it's going to be in a couple days, and any specific instructions if I didn't already input those, in the template section. If I want to say, hey, remember to let me know when you're done in this candidate so I can phone screen or reject them. And that's what's really good about that @mention is that it will send an email notification to you or whoever you're @mentioning so that they know what their next steps are. So we can see that Randy was @mentioned here by me when I put him into the next stage. And if Randy comes in, leaves his note, says, hey, this candidate looks good, please phone screen him, I can write back to Randy and say, great, scheduling phone screen ASAP. And you can share your comment with a sentiment as well if you want to just kind of give a brief overview of what your plans are, what you didn't like or liked. This will kind of help you at a glance look at the discussion tab and figure out whether or not this candidate's going to be a good fit or not. And you can see this @mention here, and now Randy will get these notifications in his inbox and an easy link to come in and add a comment. So I really like @mentions because they can easily notify everybody all at once and keep everybody in the loop without necessarily having to assign a task, and it's a quick actionable item, and nobody's having to go in and check the discussion tab all the time to figure out what their next steps are. You can use the discussion tab to put all of your notes about a candidate. You don't necessarily have to @mention. So if I want to put in my notes from the phone screen here, I can. No pros, well-spoken, cons, late for the call, what have you. And you can change this visibility as well. And you can edit and delete any comments that you need to after they've been left. So if I want to delete a comment from someone else, I'm like, oh, this isn't appropriate or this is not good, I can delete this comment as well. The only comments you can't delete are the ones that are associated with these stage moves. So the discussion tab is going to kind of be the heartbeat of the candidate profile. This is going to be where you can find all of the information, all the stage moves, what's been going on, kind of the activity stream, and all the comments. So I definitely recommend using this as much as possible to leave all of your notes, to let people know what's going on. It's a really good way to do that versus email. That's kind of harder to go through and assess at a glance. So once I screen him, I phone screen him, I think he would be a good fit. for the role. I can move him into an interview stage. I can send him any emails from here and read any emails that were associated with his profile. So if I wanted to send him an email requesting a phone screen or requesting an interview time, I can click that new email button, and maybe I want to use this profile. I'm going to say, hey, you're moving along to the next stage. I can send it from myself or send it from the webinars account that I'm using. This will be from your company name, basically. And you can choose to delay this or send it right away. You can do this from workflow helpers as well. So you'll see what that looks like in just a moment. So once I hit send, I can see this logged in the candidate profile here. And I can view any other emails that were sent to this candidate within this emails tab as well. You also have the ability to store any email communications about this candidate within Jazz using this candidate Dropbox email. You can copy and paste this email and forward chains of communication about a candidate to this email, and they will log into the system. You can also BCC this email as you're communicating within your regular email client, and they will all log into Jazz. So they will all be logged in this email tab. A couple things to note: if you want to log all of your email communications within the system, just originate your first email from Jazz, and then whenever the candidate responds, you can continue to respond in your regular email inbox, and they will log into this email tab here. So they will be recorded. I would recommend doing that so that you have all of your email communications within Jazz as well. So if you do come back to this candidate at some point, you can see, okay, these are the conversations that we had, especially, if someone else might take over your role at some point and this candidate applies again, they'll want to know what's going on and what the conversations were. So I definitely recommend using the email tool within Jazz to communicate as much as possible. You can also move candidates into a not hired status as well from here. So if I look through Nancy's resume, I look through her questionnaire answers, I read them here, I scroll down and look at her cover letter and her candidate information, and I think, okay, she's not going to be necessarily a good fit. You can check the discussion tab if you're not the first person viewing the candidate profile to also get some information, as well as emails, always good places to review. And then I can click the reject button to reject her here. So if I want to say she's just not going to be a good fit, I can select not hired, reject the candidate, and I'll see this email pop up saying, hey, this is going to send this rejection letter template to the candidate. This sounds great to me. This is what I want. I can send it along in a couple hours, 3 days. Whatever works for you. I like to do 5 days as a standard, make it look like I really took my time in evaluating this resume. Or you can deselect this entirely if you know the person, you don't want to just send them a canned email. I can confirm my status change. And then again, I can check this emails tab, see this scheduled email out, saying, hey, this is going to be sent at this time. If you change your mind, you can always delete the scheduled email and remove it from the queue there so it won't go out. So a lot of ways to communicate with your candidates and communicate internally just right out of the gate without having to set up a lot of stuff in the app. I definitely recommend getting started off with the discussion tab and app mentions right away and logging all of your communications within the system and moving candidates through the steps as you're actually moving them through the hiring process. A couple things to note here on the profile as well. These 4 little action buttons up here will give you some quick things you can do with the candidate. You can request a comment from someone on your team. So if you want to get a quick comment, you can just put in their email address here, and those comments will filter into their candidate profile. So definitely recommend doing that. They'll filter into the discussion tab. You can send an email from here, add and create a task just on the fly if you don't necessarily want to create one as a part of the workflow. And you have this nice drop down which allows you to access everything on this sidebar right up here. And you can hide or watch a candidate. So if you did want to add her to your watch list that you can access from up here or from your launch page, you can do that. Or you can hide a candidate if you don't want them to be able to be visible by other users, and maybe someone's going to be added in as a user that's going to be working in Jazz. You can click hide candidate and only admins will be able to see them. Okay, that is about everything wanted to cover today. Just a few things while you guys are thinking of questions to ask and things like that. The candidates page is where you're going to find a list of all of your candidates. This is where you can perform bulk actions, export candidates, candidate lists. You can also add candidates into the system here by drag and dropping their resumes. So this is where you can do some more bulk actions based on your database as a whole. I won't walk through each of these steps here. They're pretty straightforward, but I just wanted to point that out. So if you guys need to, search, you can search by category, you can search by job, by name, any of these options here. And you have the ability to do an advanced search on basically everything in the candidate profile within this candidates page. So I do like to point the candidates page out. It's a really good place to go if you're looking to do, like I said, those bulk or more of an entire database search versus just in an individual job like we have on the jobs page. So the jobs page is going to where you're going to focus on working in an individual job, on candidates just in that job, and the candidates page is where you're going to focus on your entire candidate database as a whole, so everyone across all of your jobs. And then your people page obviously is where you're going to go in and add in your internal Jazz users. So I did have a couple questions come in here. Is there a way to change the options for the recruiting status if I wanted to use the recruiter title for in-house recruiters? Unfortunately not. That title and role is only for external recruiters. What is an at mention? I think we covered that. Let me know if you have any other questions, but an at mention is basically just a comment that includes a notification to the person that you're at mentioning. If recruiters want to track their sources, there was a question about recruiters tracking their sources. They can always edit the candidate profile to include the source that they found them. So, for example, if I come into Jimmy's profile here, at any point I can click edit at the top here, and I can edit any information I need to about the candidate's information. So the referrer, the source, the recruiter. So if I wanted to select the recruiter as this person, or the recruiter is doing this themselves, they'll have full access to their own candidate profiles. They can change their source to, Glassdoor or Career Fair or whatever makes sense for them, and just hit save profile, and that will update there. So when they have their own custom link for a recruiter, it doesn't automatically track their source. It'll just track where they came from. So they'll have to manually enter that in unless they just want to use a custom job link. Okay. All right, there's a question here about offer letters. We cover offer letters on the advanced admin section. So if you want to get any more information on that, I would definitely recommend signing up for our advanced admin training. Also, all of our information about offers, if you just type in offer here, you can get a ton of different information on offer templates, creating offer letters, and the candidate profile overall. But if anyone has any additional questions, I highly recommend attending our advanced admin. We cover career pages, reports, the admin section in a little bit more detail, offer letters, e-signatures, and integrations. So you'll have the ability to get all of those questions answered there. And any other additional questions you have, you can always use our success knowledge base here. Like I said, by just kind of typing in, you'll get some information. You can be brought to our knowledge base, which has a lot of information on each of the features that we have, as well as everything that we covered here today. So that would be my first instinct, would be to go and search there first. And then if you can't find your answer, we also have the support center the ability to create a support ticket. So if you just click submit a support ticket, you can easily ask our customer support team anything you might need, and you have the live chat here as well. So I appreciate everybody coming today and participating. You know where to go. If you need any other questions, you can always just email support@jazz.co too. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.